Hello there, I'm Judith Royal, and here we are a week later. Can you believe a week has gone by? Oh, and in less than 2 weeks, I'll be on the road again. Hello, and from Cottonwood/Sedona, and I'm glad to be together again. And I have to say, a couple of days after the last Facebook Live, I thought to myself, well, now, where are we going to go from here? What can we talk about that will relate directly from our conversation around core wounds and victimhood? And when I asked that question to myself, there was a word that popped up right in the middle of my forehead, and it was resilience. And I thought to myself, resilience, what has that got to do with it? And then I thought, it has everything to do with it. So welcome, everybody. I hope, please let me know if, oh, hi, Mark. We've got people already, and Lori. And please write any questions or comments along the way. I can address them as we go. You'll just have to stop me, because once I get going, I don't know enough to stop. So I asked myself this question about how resilience, what that has to do with having our buttons pushed. And when I really sat and thought about it, how resilient we are is the degree to which we allow our buttons to be pushed and how we respond to that. So that actually it means the less resilient we are, the more involved we're going to get in our pity party. So as we talked about in the last few weeks, it's human, it's natural to experience these emotions, but it's all about mastering the emotions. So what does that mean? Well, it means that if we don't have a chance to process those emotions when they bubble up to the surface, and all of a sudden you feel, oh dear, I've had my buttons pushed. What am I going to do about this? Well, you might have to put it to the side until you have a chance to really process it. Or you might choose to allow that button to be pushed, and boom, all of a sudden you're emoting all over the place. And that's actually what you don't want to happen, because that's usually when we get ourselves into a bit of hot water and we find ourselves going down the rabbit hole. How many have had that experience? I know I have in my younger days, and in my older days as well. So it's not about suppressing your emotions, and it's not about distracting yourself so that you don't have to experience the emotion, and it's not about resisting the emotion, because actually when we resist, guess what? It persists. And that's actually resistance prevents resilience. That's almost a rhyme, isn't it? So when I ask myself the question, all right, what do we have to have in place to be resilient? And this goes without saying. There are 3 things. It is eating properly, having enough sleep, and movement, having some kind of movement in your life. And if you've had an experience where you've blown your stack, you are lacking in one of those 3 areas. So we really need to lead a healthy lifestyle to be able to be resilient when we need to be resilient. And resilience is all about being able to deal with life's trials and tribulations when they come up. And it's not so much what we expect. When we expect it, we know how to deal with it. It's when the rug gets pulled out from under our feet and we're blindsided. That's what usually has this build up and come to the surface. It's almost like acid reflux. Whatever you suppress and push down, and it comes to the surface and blows, it's like acid reflux. And I thought, oh, I get acid reflux from time to time. I wonder what I'm suppressing. I guess I need to take a look at that. Sometimes I think I learn more about these FB Lives than I do in teaching in the moment. So we have lots of people here. Do we have any questions coming up? And it's nice to see everybody as well. So when we're talking about resilience and how do we build resilience, it is taking that moment in time to take a step back as the watcher, the silent watcher, or the observer, and ask the universe, what is the answer to this question? What is the best way to deal with this? And if we're quiet enough and listen to ourselves, and we know we all have the answers within ourselves, we receive an inspired action. An inspired action is the opposite of a knee-jerk reaction. And so that's why sometimes when something comes up and it bubbles to the surface, it's not a matter of suppressing it. It's a matter of just putting it on the side and dealing with it when you have time to delve deeper into yourself to ask, what is the best way to respond to this? So inspired action always works in a healthier way to respond, because really the other thing that contributes to the lack of resistance is really being overwhelmed. And sometimes we just can't see the forest for the trees. And we've talked about this before in the last few weeks. When we're overwhelmed, it's like freezing. We can't move. So if you can just have that little voice, instead of the mind chatter, the wise higher self tell you, just wait, just sit on it, we'll figure it out. And sometimes we just get to the point where we say, you know what, I'm just sick and tired of being sick and tired. And that's actually the bottom line. It's like getting to the bottom of the barrel and you have to turn around and look up to see that, oh, I guess that's the light up there. And that's okay too, because it's the awareness that brings us around, even if you are sick and tired of being sick and tired. So I thought to myself, now how do we relate this to Soul Genesis? And anybody who has worked with me or has been one of my students, there's always something in the work that we can relate back to our core essence of who we are. And lo and behold, when I sat and thought about where do we learn resilience, we can also talk about it in terms of gateways. Astrologers have been calling them portal ways or portals lately. Gateways are ways that the universe can teach us how to cope in different ways and raise our level of consciousness, raise us to a higher level of consciousness. And when I looked at the transitional gateways, the first one is actually directional shift. So if you're looking at changing how you respond because it's not getting you where you want it to go, you remember the saying, insanity is doing the same thing over again and expecting different results. And so we actually decide, all right, I guess we're going to have to make a directional shift on how we approach these things. And that is actually reorienting how you express your emotions and how you decide to do things and how you decide to think. So the best example I can give around that is gaining and losing weight, my bane of existence. So I come from a long line of women who place the utmost importance on weight, that you have to be a certain weight. We weigh ourselves every single day. And of course, that is exacerbated by what we see on TV, how we were brought up with what we saw in magazines. And so I've had a whole career of gaining and losing weight. I have no trouble losing the weight, but I gain it right back on again. And so when I asked myself the question, why do I keep gaining the weight back on again? I had to say it's because I was doing it for the wrong reasons. So when I approached it in a way of saying, all right, I need to change my direction here for sure. I need to change how I the reasons why I feel I need to lose weight. And that is that I need to change my lifestyle, or else I'm going to be in a wheelchair by the time I'm 80. That is not a particularly attractive thought to me. And so it's changing. So actually what it is changing what you think you should do to what you intuitively know you want to do for yourself. There's quite a difference between defining what's going on externally, those expectations that we've been brought up with, and what internally we know is best for ourselves. And when we start listening to ourselves, that's when we build resilience, because it doesn't matter what the outside world is saying. We're listening to what's going on inside. So have we got anybody else joining us? Oh, that's good. And if you have any questions, please write them in the column section down there. So that's why, it's interesting. It's why so many of us became empty nesters before we actually asked ourselves the question, well, who am I? Because we've always defined ourselves as being a mother, a daughter, a sister, whatever we did career-wise, we defined ourselves as that. My goodness, I think I was retired 10 years before I started defining myself as something other than a retired principal. So I had a long time to work through that. And it's wonderful now that younger people are actually looking at that much sooner and asking the question, who am I? Really, what makes me tick? And so at a spiritual level, this is all about moving from the mind to the heart, getting out of our heads in terms of would-haves and should-haves, and into our heart in terms of what is right for us, and believing that when we're experiencing emotions, we don't have to rationalize them. We just have to process them according to what they mean for us. So that's my little ditty today on resilience. And of course, this can be a precursor to other discussions. So please let me know what you think about what I've put out here today. I'd love to hear. And 2 days from now, on April 17th, there is a radio program that I'll be interviewed on. So it'd be lovely to have your support if you could tune in. And we'll put that information below in the comments. And of course, we have my book launch coming up, and that information will come along as well. So I will leave that with you now, and you ask yourself the question, how resilient are you? And with that, this is from my heart to yours, from Sedona/Cottonwood. Bye-bye.